In this 16-minute segment, we look at the absolutely bizarre, incredible, and mind-boggling story which belongs to Mike Smith, the lifelong ET abductee experiencer who also had this incredible supernatural link with English serial killers Fred and Rosemary West, and ultimately ending up looking like his twin for at least a period of time. A more bizarre story there is not, and it spans some decades. And perhaps after all it might be worth the police revisiting the far long ago cases of Fred and Rosemary West. When he was in the UK, when he was still in the army, he came to do a couple of years training for the special forces. He didn't get into that because he ended up breaking both his ankles in the training, poor thing. And so they gave him light duties, still in the army. On one of these occasions, he was having a break home and he'd been dropped off in Bristol. Now, Bristol area and Gloucester is the stomping ground of Fred West. Not that Mike knew this. He had never heard of Fred and Rosemary West, and this would be circa 1971. The world did not know of Fred West. The only people who knew Fred West and Rosemary West at this time were the neighbours or his family or friends. So bear that in mind. Mike is dropped off in Bristol, and what he wants to do is to get another lift, hitchhike another lift to the Stourbridge area, to his parents' place. And he sees a pub, good old Mike. He says, I'll go and ask them, which is the best way to go, and have a few pints before. So that's exactly what he does. So he goes off and has a few pints, and everybody in the pub is saying to him, "Are you Fred's brother?" Well, he doesn't know who they're talking about and who or what Fred is. He went, "No." And then one of them got a bit rude and said, "Well, your mother must have a bike." And he did get a bit shirty then. I don't blame him. Those were just locals. And apparently he must have looked extremely like Fred West. Now, Fred West was a good 9 years older than Mike. I think quite a bit bigger. I've got a couple of images of Fred West and Mike, and you know what? They look scarily alike. Anyway, yeah, they do. But they really do look alike. Anyway, so the pub closes, and he's toward the end of his injury, so he can walk without sticks, and he's maybe hobbling along a little bit because he's still in his recovery time. And he sees a little road or lane, and he walks up it. He thinks, well, if I turn off that, there's bound to be a main road. I'll get a lift. So that was his thinking. Now, as he's walking up this lane, a black Mariah kind of vehicle pulls up, and a Mariah is like the old-fashioned black police vehicles, as I'm told. Picture of that in the book as well, with the sliding doors on the side and the two passenger door, driver passenger door. And then the passenger door is pushed open, obviously by the driver, and this rough voice of Rosemary West says, in very rude language, I won't do the rude language, "Bleep, bleep, bleep, get in then." Mike, kind of shocked. Now, Mike is inebriated at this time. He doesn't mind telling us all. He's at a skinful, he's on holiday for the weekend or whatever it is. And so this woman in the big glasses and the bobble hat says, "Well, get in." And then he opens his mouth to say, is she going his way? Could she drop him off? And of course, she's got this black country accent. And if people don't know what that's like, it's a little bit toward the Birmingham accent, but not quite. Yeah. So that just gives you an idea of the different sound. And the Gloucester Bristol accent is nothing like it. So she went, "Oh, bleep, 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 who they bleep, bleep, bleep are you?" And he went, "Well, I'm just on leave from the army," because he hadn't got his army uniform on, but he's got his army coat on, one of those big coats. Yeah. And she said, "Well, you better FFF get in, because if he sees you," pointing to Fred West out in the field with a spade, "if he sees you, it'll be all hell to pay." He has no idea, and don't forget he's drunk. So in he sits, and she's yattering on, and then they're driving, and all of a sudden he's got a pull on his sleeve from the back. He didn't even know anybody was in the back. And as he turns round, there's a wee girlie there, probably 15 or 16, tied. And her ankles are tied. She's protesting, "Mister, please help us. She's going to kill us. Help, you've got to help us." Well, Mike was a bit disconcerted by it and thought, what the hell, what's going on? And Rosemary West burst out laughing and said, oh, ignore her. She's my daughter. She's been on, kind of on the raz with men in Bristol. So I've had to tie her up and bring her back. And so Mike kind of thinks nothing of it for a moment until he's pulled again by her with her little, bound wrists. Mister, please, you've got to help. And she indicates that he needs to look to the floor. And as he does, she gets her feet together, her bound ankled feet together, and lifts up a top that's on the bottom. And there he sees a girl, still as death, probably dead, with her eyes wide open, just lying there. And Mike does not know what to think. He thinks, when I asked him and quizzed him many times about this event, I said, so did you honestly think these girls were messing about? Because that's what he said. He went, yeah. He said, you got to remember, Jan, I was drunk. He said, all I was thinking about was getting home, getting warm, getting comfortable, getting some sleep, that kind of thing. He said, I had no idea. And of course, now this is very early. This is 1971, 2 at the most. We think it's 71. Then she drops him off and a lorry picks him up, a truck. And as they're going, the lorry driver says to him, hey, did you come out of that black van? He went, oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, there was a black van that gave me a lift. He went, it's been following us for a while. Well, Mike didn't know why. And then only many years later, he would put 2 and 2 together and go, oh, yeah, they thought I was going to ring the police. That's what he believed later. At the time, he was inebriated. He didn't care about it. He didn't think about it. He wasn't interested. He just thought it was girls joking about and with a crazy mother. That's all. Remember, nobody knew who Fred and Rosemary West were. They were the most heinous killers almost on the planet. I mean, they were shocking. And I'm going to roll forward only just a few years. He's still in Germany, but he's come out of the army and he's in the year or so he's in Germany. So this would be 74 he was out. So this might be 75, 76. He's living with his wife, and they're just divorcing, his German wife. And they had an agreement that she had the key for the apartment or whichever way around it was, and he had the one for the building and blah, blah. That's how they worked it. So he'd been out for just a couple of pints. He said, I wasn't drunk, nothing like that. Just a couple of pints, talking about my circumstances and the situation, because he was in Germany, thinking, now, God, I've got to get back to England and worrying all about that. And he realized he didn't have any of the keys to the building with him. Apartment or the main building. So then he spies that the cellar window is open a bit, enough for him to get through. Now the cellar window is great. It goes straight into a cellar, at the end of which is a door that goes into the hallway, and then you're off to whichever apartment you need and whichever floor it's on. And he knew the cellar. I think he'd been in and out a couple of times, so he was familiar with it. I don't think it's, shockingly late at night. It might be 12 or something like that. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to read the book again myself. And he's getting down sort of stomach first. So he's going down front side first. So he's not facing the room. He's facing the wall where he's coming in through the window. And I say that because he's about to be forced to turn around, because all of a sudden, as he says about 5 feet, 6 feet from the ground, so you don't want to jump too awkwardly, otherwise you could easily, even at that short distance, sprain an ankle. And he said all of a sudden he felt his legs were being tugged on, as if something was pulling him, really pulling him, not just a little tap. This was something really dragging him down. And as he sort of squidged himself around to face what it was, I don't know, I can't remember. I was talking to somebody today, and I can't remember if it's the Harrison Ford, it's the Ark of the Covenant one, where all the wraiths and ghouls come out of the Ark. Yeah. But he said they were like that. But he said that's the nearest things that these things looked to that were pulling on me. And he said, and not only that, he said, the entire room looked different. It didn't look like my cellar anymore. And he said there was a massive black chasm. And these wraith-like ghoulish beings were coming up from there. And I mean, they were physical enough to make his physical body feel like it was being pulled down off the ledge of the window. So he said, you know, Joanne, out of all the ET stuff, out of everything that's happened to me, that scared me probably the most. He's really racking his brain in the instant, knowing that it feels like a death situation, like he might be pulled to his death. I'm wondering what the hell to do. And so he thinks, well, the only thing I can do is jump down and just leg it, just really run and see if I make it, see if I don't go into the chasm and make it across the floor, which he did. And he did make it. So bear in mind that. And now we're going to come forward 5 years to 1994, when Fred West, on the 25th of February, I think, was arrested for, I think, only 5 murders at that time. I say only 5 because I've been working with a Dowser, and there's a team working with at the area where Mike believes he was. They think they found it, and they found it at least 7 more burials by remote viewing and dowsing. Yeah, how amazing is that? Anyway, fast forward, as I said, to 1994, when Fred West was arrested, and the police, it's all over the television, the police are showing the cellar. All of a sudden, Mike goes, oh my God, that's the cellar from Germany when those wraith-like beings were trying to pull me into this chasm. It's the exact same cellar. Whatever was on the walls, the images and whatever were there that Mike saw in his cellar, transposed onto this TV. I mean, all of these years later. I didn't make this stuff up. He phoned the police immediately and said, I saw Rosemary, you know, he then suddenly knew, because he can see Rosemary West and see what she looked, and Fred West, and he said, I had a lift from her and bloody blah, and there were these girls. And the police said, oh, we don't go back that far. Apparently, in recent times, and I'm talking about this year, someone's approached the police to say, not the police in the Gloucester area, but another local to where they live, and told that part of the story, and the policeman said, we would never say that. We would never say it's too long ago. Well, they did. One of the things Mike he wasn't a liar. So whether the police have that protocol now, I don't know, but they certainly didn't in 1994. I mean, if that had been me, I'd have been around that area like a shot. So we were trying to figure out what this link could possibly be with Fred West and Mike Smith, because they didn't know each other personally. They'd never met. They looked extremely alike. So, you know, that's an astonishing story. And just to finish off about that stream of thought about the Fred West lookalike business, and although Fred West was from a different part of the country, was born in a different year, 9 years older, bigger, taller, but facially they really did look similar at one point. When he was older, of course, Fred West killed himself in 1995, so we'll never know what he looked like in old age. And Mike didn't make old age, having died in 2023. He said he was racked with guilt thereafter about the fate and plight of those young ladies, because he said he might have been able to, who knows, save one of them. But he said, and I questioned him again and again, how could you not possibly think that there was something in it with her being tied and everything? He said, well, Rosemary West gave her to him and inebriated him at that time. Don't forget, he's 20 odd years old, 21, 22. He's just not a worldly person, and he wouldn't be thinking heinous things. He's not that kind of guy. But he said it really racked him with guilt thereafter, thinking, wow, maybe I could have done something. And we'll never know the identity of those 2 young ladies. I mean, there are others who are unknown that we have ascribed Fred West's criminality to, his murders to. But the team, I dip in and out.
Joanne, do you think there's more to come of that story?
I don't think the police will tell you much more. I might do a little video on that. It depends, because the locations are sensitive, of course, because if you've got a farm and there's public access and suddenly the 7 bodies along that line of your property, it's hard, isn't it? So I don't know how you actually would approach that. I actually do believe it should be followed up with the police. I do believe they should look at the work that we've been doing. Peter Vincent, particularly of the Dowsing Detective films episodes that I've created, that also on the YouTube channel, where he's showing how using color codes with their numerological counterparts, and he can extract unique codes through an ET contact, believe it or believe it not. And these have proven to be, time and again, correct. And the guys have been working on other murder crimes by other people as well, and been finding out an astonishing lot of information, but I won't go into those because it's a lot. It really is a lot. This audio segment is taken from a podcast filmed on the 10th of December 2025 with audio tidied and tightened for comprehension. Mike Smith was interviewed countless times about his extraordinary experiences, especially this one, because of the bizarre nature of the apparent link between Mike Smith and Fred West in looks, and the long timeline between events and the eventual realization, the joining of the dots about his recognition of the cellar whilst living in Germany in the mid-1970s, to seeing it shown in a news broadcast on mainstream television in 1994. You can read Mike's incredible life story in the book 44, based on an ex-soldier's true story of lifelong encounters involving alien abduction, men in black, a serial killer, and persecution by the Freemasons, available on Amazon. Further interviews and information about Mike's story and many others can be seen on the ETN website, which is all the W's, theetnewsroom.com 2026.